Tech mogul Trip was in an online meeting when a humpback whale suddenly swallowed him whole. The entire company witnessed their boss becoming whale breakfast. Fortunately, the video connection remained active. Trip was still alive. After receiving the alert, the dispatch center quickly pinpointed Trip's location. The good news was that the whale that swallowed him was a humpback, whose throat is only 20 centimeters wide, too narrow to swallow an adult human. Now, all they had to do was wait for the whale to open its mouth again to feed, and Trip might be expelled. But the biggest threat now was running out of oxygen. He had to stay calm until rescue arrived. Fire Station 118 dispatched immediately and soon spotted a massive shadow beneath the sea surface. The Coast Guard would take 20 minutes to arrive, and air support could reach in 12 minutes at best. But humpback whales can die for 45 minutes. Trip's oxygen supply wouldn't last that long. They had to force the whale to surface. Then Han came up with a brilliant idea. Humpback whales have extremely sensitive hearing, so they simply used a traffic cone as a megaphone, connected it to the fire truck's siren, and fed the sound into the ocean through a fire hose. This channeled 120 decibel noise into the water, as the current carried the piercing sound straight to the ocean floor. The tactic worked instantly. The whale couldn't endure the noise, but Trip had already lost consciousness from oxygen deprivation. Dispatch calls went unanswered. This was the fire department's only attempt. Now, they could only leave it to fate.
Hey, there he is! Is he alive?
All right, let's hitch the litter to the aerial. We gotta move.
Eddie plunged into the sea like an electric motor. He swam toward the victim and pulled Trip ashore. He had stopped breathing. Team Medic Han immediately began resuscitation. Fortunately, Trip regained consciousness. Trip once again redefined his title, the first man to walk away unscathed from a whale's mouth. Upon arriving at the scene of a fire alarm, the fire department found only burning steak and a TV left on. The homeowner was nowhere to be seen. Just then, a neighbor dropped by, mentioning they'd heard the homeowner on the phone an hour earlier. Due to poor signal in the building, the homeowner might have gone to the roof to find reception. But when firefighters reached the roof, they found Jack trapped upside down in the narrow gap. Before breaking through the wall, firefighters lowered a mask and walkie-talkie to Jack. By this point, Jack was severely weakened from prolonged compression. The firefighters wasted no time. They quickly measured the coordinates and began drilling through the wall. Jack said he was nearly done for, feeling exhausted and wanting to sleep. To keep Jack alert, Ryder, knowing his love for combat sports, deliberately disparaged the boxer Jack supported. Jack erupted, shouting he'd settle the score with Ryder once free. Ryder, delighted, continued provoking him with taunts. Amid Jack's curses, the wall finally gave way. Paramedics immediately administered 4 fluids, temporarily saving his life. Firefighters widened the opening. As the wall crumbled, Jack's feet, dangling upside down, came into view. The team laid Jack flat on a stretcher, but he still yelled about beating up Ryder. Ryder explained with a smile that this was to keep Jack's will to survive strong. Jack instantly quieted, his heart filled with gratitude for the firefighters.
Hey, what's going on back there? Kids? Wake up! Kids, wake up!
Shortly after, the school bus driver began experiencing dizziness. Fortunately, he mustered his last strength to bring the bus to a safe, smooth stop. Witnesses immediately called 911. Firefighters and Officer Athena arrived simultaneously. Athena directed her team to prioritize checking the driver for alcohol impairment. The driver struggled out of the vehicle and immediately insisted he hadn't been drinking, pointing to the unconscious children inside. Eddie and paramedic Han rushed to the bus and discovered 15 unconscious children. Han inquired if it was carbon monoxide poisoning, but Eddie's gas detector ruled out that possibility. Han immediately ordered his team to maintain positive pressure ventilation inside the vehicle. Meanwhile, Buck seemed to have found the cause. A green liquid was leaking inside the bus. Han instantly determined that engine overheating had caused antifreeze to leak into the air conditioning system. Thus, the children and driver had inhaled antifreeze. The medics examined the children and found their pulses racing with blood pressure as high as 160. Medics Han and Han analyzed that the ethylene glycol in the antifreeze had metabolized into glycolic acid in the body, causing organ failure. But they only had 2 doses of fomepizole on the vehicle, insufficient. The children's blood pressure was still rising, and transport to a hospital was too late. Eddie immediately realized ethanol could block glycolic acid. Han and Athena rushed into a convenience store and bought vodka and rum.
Oh no, this is not for us, this is for the kids.
What followed was a dramatic scene.
10-year-old female, heart rate's 92. We've administered saline and 2 shots of 80 proof rum.
Libby, 11. We started her on 40 mils of Irish whiskey. We're monitoring her.
The doctors were stunned. What on earth was going on? Risking potential lawsuits, the firefighters once again used their professional skills to complete an outstanding rescue. It's worth noting that the 9th season of Emergency Rescue is just launched with a bang. The craziest rescue missions in history are about to begin. This season, the rescue team will don spacesuits and venture into space to confront unprecedented cosmic crises. Remember to like and subscribe. I'll keep you updated with the latest developments. Several panicked employees escaped the yellow smoke and pleaded for help, revealing colleagues were still trapped. The fire department instantly identified a chlorine leak and immediately requested headquarters support. The first team donned heavy protective gear to breach the toxic zone. The second team evacuated nearby residents and sealed off the entire block. 4 firefighters entered the danger zone. Detection equipment quickly pinpointed the chlorine leak source, a damaged, abandoned storage tank. Here, a team member discovered an unconscious employee lying on the ground and swiftly carried him away from the danger zone. Meanwhile, 2 other team members identified the source of the leak, a damaged, abandoned storage tank. As they attempted to seal the breach, an unknown liquid dripped into the tank, triggering a violent chemical reaction. The container suddenly exploded, trapping 2 team members in the toxic fog. Another team arrived to find their comrades' masks blown off, their entire faces exposed to chlorine gas. The crew swiftly retrieved the mask and evacuated the scene. The medical team immediately administered first aid, urgently flushing his eyes. An angry captain confronted the scrapyard owner about the presence of chlorine tanks, but the owner deflected blame, claiming they were dumped by others and he knew nothing about them. Firefighters suspected he profited from privately disposing of hazardous chemicals. Ultimately, the biochemical response team contained the crisis, but the injured faced risks of blindness and pneumonia. Fortunately, after treatment, the team members' injuries recovered, and they would soon be able to return to duty. That illegal scrapyard was ultimately shut down permanently. When the fire department arrived at the scene, the situation had been preliminarily controlled. Federal agents briefed Captain Bobby on the situation. The driver of this California van was currently missing. Faint cries for help could be heard from the sealed cargo compartment. The team decisively used a chainsaw to break the lock. Hen approached the driver's door, finding it locked. Through the window, she spotted the driver's license. Buck opened the rear cargo door. The compartment was packed with stowaways, but only a few remained conscious. They helped each other out. Among them, a father clutched his unconscious child, pleading for help. It turned out they were all illegal immigrants who had risked crossing the border through a private smuggler. Buck immediately administered emergency care to the child. Miraculously, the child began breathing again. After all passengers were rescued, medical personnel began comprehensive treatment. Amid the onlookers, Hen spotted a suspicious figure. Upon noticing him, the individual attempted to flee. Hen swiftly moved to apprehend him. It turned out the driver, seeking extra income by aiding illegal border crossings, had left the entire vehicle exposed to the sun for 4 hours while he went out drinking. They ultimately handed the driver over to police for processing. The moment firefighters opened the door, they saw a fork embedded in the man's brow bone. Strangely, John seemed completely oblivious to the pain, insisting it was only a minor injury. His roommate was even more severely injured. The paramedics watched in horror, fearing his eyeballs might burst if he moved them even slightly. Paramedics then entered the room to check on the roommate he mentioned, but John kept swaying back and forth like Trump during a speech. Blake was too scared to even breathe. John admitted he struck his roommate on the head with a guitar, after which the roommate lost consciousness. Paramedics checked and found the roommate still had a pulse but was not breathing. Strangely, the injuries hadn't affected the lungs. Why had breathing stopped? The paramedics prepared to intubate the roommate, but upon opening his mouth, they discovered a horrifying foreign object. Using forceps, they carefully extracted what turned out to be a corn dog. Just then, the roommate suddenly began breathing again and woke up, wailing like a ghost. The paramedics sighed helplessly. Backup arrived shortly after, finally transporting John to the hospital.
The flight attendants will be too busy getting everything ready to notice.
A couple took their first flight together. The couple sneaked into the restroom, but the next second, the aircraft's control column and hydraulic systems malfunctioned. The plane stalled and instantly lost control. The captain had no choice but to divert the flight toward nearby waters for an emergency landing. At the crash site, the broken fuselage of the passenger plane floated on the sea surface. All survivors anxiously awaited rescue. The fuselage was already engulfed in flames. The bodies of the victims floated around the wreckage. A heartbreaking scene. Meanwhile, the sea level was rapidly rising, with the wreckage expected to withstand only 4 complete submersion cycles. Time was critically short for the rescue team. Passengers remained trapped inside the wreckage.
Where the hell are we going to evacuate all these people?
We have to get these people out of here to the beach.
He swiftly deployed the emergency slide, allowing survivors temporary respite while lifeboats were hastily mobilized. Inside the cabin, rescuers discovered a trapped survivor. The crash's impact had driven his seatbelt deep into his abdomen. To save time, they had to decisively cut the belt free, otherwise, the next high tide would claim him. Captain Bobby and Buck discovered a mother and son trapped in the wreckage. The mother's legs were wedged tightly between seats, making it impossible for her to escape quickly. Yet her child remained steadfastly by her side, refusing to leave. The mother urgently told him that only if he boarded the lifeboat first could the rescue team feel secure about saving her.
Then you have to believe me. I will be with you again so soon. Bobby loves you so much. Do this for me. Okay? Okay. Okay.
The boy was finally rescued from the wreckage. The mother watched her child board the lifeboat before turning away, her gaze finally free of regret. The second flood was already beginning. Bobby ordered Buck to search the aft compartment. Meanwhile, the couple from the beginning of the story were trapped in the bathroom. Heavy equipment had jammed the sliding door, leaving Buck unable to move. Then, the sound of an external engine sparked an idea. Buck had hands secure one end of a rope to the equipment and the other to the lifeboat. Using the lifeboat's momentum, Buck successfully shifted the equipment. Immediately after, the couple was finally rescued. The third submersion arrived.
You're okay. You're
Bobby, it is time to go.
Captain Bobby ordered the entire team to evacuate, yet he chose to stay behind. He promised the mother she would see her child again. The fourth submersion had already begun. Seawater completely engulfed the wreckage of the 2 men's aircraft, which was about to sink to the ocean floor. Captain Bobby was still making a final effort to rescue the mother. In the murky water, a hand grabbed Bobby's shoulder and pulled him in with all its strength. The rescue team arrived, successfully saving both the captain and the last survivor. But the crisis was far from over. While the cause of the passenger plane crash remained under investigation, the airline refused to accept responsibility, citing ongoing terrorist threats. They barred passengers from disembarking at the airport where the plane had landed. 8 hours had passed when Athena, on duty, suddenly received an alert about a disruptive passenger on board. Athena rushed into the cabin and found a passenger bound and gagged with tape. The flight attendant claimed he had been uncooperative and assaulted the attendant, justifying the restraint. But surrounding passengers immediately exposed this lie. One passenger immediately raised her phone, having recorded the entire incident on video. It turned out this passenger only wanted to retrieve his father's remains. He begged the flight attendant to let him out, fearing his father's body might be decomposing in the ocean. Instead, the flight attendant suddenly assaulted him, beating him to the ground under the pretext of disobeying orders. Upon learning the truth, Athena was speechless. Athena furiously ripped the tape from the passenger's mouth and demanded, "Who gave you the authority to detain passengers?" The flight attendant replied it was an order from the airline's CEO. No one could leave until the incident was investigated. Athena erupted in rage. "Your badge belongs to the LAPD Air Marshal Service." The entire cabin erupted in cheers and applause. As Athena bent to untie the passengers, the air marshal tried to intervene again.
Now, you said that this customer was causing a disturbance. Well then, I'm putting him under arrest for disorderly conduct. In fact, I'm arresting everyone on this plane. They're in my custody now. You are all under arrest. And that means that you are all leaving this plane.
The passengers burst into enthusiastic applause, celebrating Athena's righteous act. Through her actions, Athena proved that all are equal before the law. Don't forget to like and subscribe. What new challenges will the firefighters face in this season? Let's wait and see.